On October 25th, 1415, France looked at a sick English army and saw an execution waiting to happen. 6 hours later, the mud was filled with French nobles, and the men who had done it were not kings in shining armor. They were exhausted archers, many of them Welsh and English, standing behind sharpened stakes with longbows in their hands. Agincourt was not supposed to end like this. Henry V had crossed into France during the 100 Years' War, the long conflict over land, crowns, and power between England and France. His campaign began with confidence. Then reality arrived. The English besieged Harfleur, a port city in northern France. They took it, but the victory poisoned the army. Disease spread through the camp. Men died. Others were too weak to march properly. Henry no longer had the army he had brought across the Channel, so he tried to reach Calais, the English-held port on the coast. Calais mattered because it was the exit. If Henry reached it, his battered army might survive. If the French blocked him, the campaign could end with the King of England trapped on French soil. And the French did block him. Near the village of Agincourt, Henry found his road closed by a much larger army. The exact numbers are still argued over, but the picture is clear. The English were outnumbered, hungry, sick, and far from safety. The French had the confidence of men who believed the rules of war were on their side. They had noblemen, armored men-at-arms, mounted warriors, banners, status, and numbers. In the world of medieval battle, that should have been enough. But the field disagreed. Agincourt was narrow, hemmed in by woods. Rain had soaked the ground. The soil was soft, heavy, and waiting. For a lightly equipped archer, that was miserable. For an armored man advancing under fire, it could become a trap. Henry understood he could not win by charging, so he made the French come to him. The English archers drove sharpened wooden stakes into the ground in front of their line. These stakes were simple, ugly things, but they changed the battle. They made a cavalry charge dangerous because horses could not easily crash through them without breaking formation. Behind those stakes stood the longbowmen. A longbow was not a magic weapon. Plate armor could resist many arrows, but that is not the point. A longbow could throw enough shafts into the sky to turn movement into panic. Arrows could kill horses, strike faces, find gaps, and force men to lower their heads. The first French attacks failed to break the archers. Horses hit mud, stakes, and arrow fire. Formation began to loosen. Then the main French men-at-arms advanced on foot. This looked sensible. They would not depend on horses. They would push through the arrows, close the distance, and crush the thin English line with armor and weight. But each step made them weaker. The mud pulled at their feet. The men behind pressed into the men ahead. Armor that protected the body now trapped heat, breath, and movement. The narrow field squeezed thousands of men into a space where they could barely swing a weapon. And all the while, arrows kept falling. Not every arrow pierced armor. It did not need to. The real enemy was compression. Men fell. Others stumbled over them. Some were pushed face first into the mud and could not rise. The battlefield stopped being a place for chivalry and became a machine for suffocation. When the French finally reached the English line, they were exhausted. Henry's men-at-arms held the center. The archers, once they had fired their arrows, moved in with knives, axes, and mallets. Against trapped and fallen armored men, a peasant weapon in close quarters could become terrifying. This was the part no noble wanted to imagine. A knight could spend a fortune on armor, horses, and training, then die under the hands of a man he would never have noticed at court. Wave after wave of French attackers entered the same killing ground. They could not use their numbers properly. The rear could not see the front. The front could not move. The ground had turned superiority into weight. Then came the darkest order. Henry feared another French attack and feared prisoners might rearm behind him, so he ordered many prisoners killed. It was brutal. But it shows one thing clearly, even in victory. The English still feared being overwhelmed. By the end, the French army had been shattered. Many nobles were dead. Others were captured. England had lost far fewer men than anyone on that morning would have believed possible. Agincourt did not end the 100 Years' War. It did not make England permanently victorious in France. But it broke something deeper. It broke the idea that noble armor, heavy cavalry, and social rank could command the battlefield by themselves. The French did not lose because they lacked courage. They walked into arrows, mud, and death with immense courage. That was the tragedy. They had bravery. The English had the ground. And on that October day, the ground chose the archers.